Chapter number 3, Neural Network. It is also called artificial neural network. Like in human body, we have a nervous system. Same thing we have applied on the machines also to make them work as human beings. That is artificial nervous system of the machines, also commonly called artificial neural network. So let's see this topic, artificial neural network. Before we move towards understanding what we mean by neural network or artificial neural network, we are going to recapitulate or revise or remember the previous unit. The previous unit was AI project cycle, and in that AI project cycle there were so many part of the AI project cycle. One part that is based on how we can create different models for AI, that step is called modeling. It is a step in creating an AI project. What do you mean by model? Model means the way to make the AI program work. There are different types of models or different types of approaches for creating model in an AI system. These two are rule based approach and machine learning approach. So there are two ways by which you can create an AI program. If you are trying to make a software based on AI, then the method that will be used by you, the model that will be used by you, will be of either rule based type or machine learning type. Now let's understand what is the meaning of these two, rule based approach and machine learning approach, also called ML approach. Now suppose you are working in a school and you have to create an AI system for the school. Now in the school there are name of student, class, section, roll number, these things are there. So you know everything about the data that you are going to use, name of all the students, you know how to classify the data in the form of table, you know. If I give you the data of all the students of the school with so many things, uh, you will find that in the data we have O positive, O negative written, we have some names written, we have some addresses written, so you can easily classify it. Name of the student in the column of name, father name in the column of father name, mother name in the column of mother name. You will get some names of cities, so you know that these cities are in which he live, okay, he was born, so you can easily classify the data. So this type of approach, when we know what the data is, we can ourselves classify the data. It is called rule based approach. So in the rule based approach, the developer, the programmer who is creating the AI system, feeds data. He knows everything about the data, he has classified the data, so he provides some ground rules to the model. These ground rules are actually the information that he is having about the data. For example, he knows the column names, name of student, father name, mother name, address, mobile number, these things he knows. Okay, now you are giving two input to the AI system. First input is the data, okay, all the names of father, all the names of mother, everything you are giving. And one more thing that you are giving is the ground rules. These ground rules are actually the base on which the data was created, means father name, so names of all the person who are having their ward in the school. So now the model is getting trained with these input. Now whenever you will ask any question based on these input, it will give you answers. But answers will be in the form of predictions. The answers can be 100% genuine correct also, and sometimes the answers cannot be correct also. Because it is based on data, if the data given is correct, then it will give correct prediction. For example, one more example we are having. Suppose there is a manager in a company which is selling cars, and the manager gets the data of the sales of the cars in one showroom for the past 10 years. And now he has to predict what will be the sales for the next 2 year or 3 year. Instead of working himself and doing all of these calculations, he can just feed the data in the computer, in the AI system, and will tell the AI system some rules. Rules will be the number of cars sold in a month. Okay, the number of cars sold of a particular model. So these are the rules. Based on these rules, when in the 11th year or 12th year you want to get prediction, you want to get result that how much car might be we will be selling in this year, that we can get, but that will not be 100% sure, it will be predictions. So this approach is commonly used when we have a known data set, means we know about the data. Suppose we know about the data that this is the data of the car sold by the showroom. These are the data of the students of the school. So when we have a known data set or we have a labeled data, means we know the columns of the data, then we can go for a rule based approach. So we can say in rule based approach we have rules and data, and this rule based approach will give you answers in the form of prediction. Okay, now suppose you got one data and you don't know anything about the data. Someone gave you the data to work upon, but you don't know anything about the data, and you are not able to identify if it is data of the students of a college, data of students of a school, or data of any particular colony, because you have some names only these are names. You don't know whether these are names of a student and father and mother or any other name. You don't know. In that condition, we have one approach that is very helpful. In that approach, computer will itself try to get some information about the data. This approach is called machine learning approach. So in contrast to rule based approach, under the machine learning approach, the developer, the programmer will just feed in the data, and it will feed the answer also. For question answer based things, it will feed the answers also. So data along with the answer. Okay, now machine will automatically design its own algorithm and methodology how to get the result if a new question comes. For example, the company the for example, suppose we want to get the medicines for the patients in a hospital. Okay, so what we will do, we will give the data, and we don't know which medicines for which one. We have put all the medicines and we have put all the data, all of these things combined together. Now machine is automatically trained that it can create its own algorithm. The machine can then create its own algorithm. So machine then designs its own algorithm and methodologies to match the data with the answers and give out the rules. So in this approach, you do not need to tell the computer the rules. The rules will itself be created by the AI system. You do not need to tell the AI system the rules. The AI system will automatically create its own rule. So this approach is commonly used when the data that you are using is unknown or random or unlabeled. You don't know anything about the data. So this approach is commonly used when the data is unknown or random data. You don't know anything about the data. You have only the data. The data is not classified or the data is unlabeled. So in that condition, you do not need to create any rule. The computer will itself create its own rules. So let's understand these approaches with the help of some examples of different models. Basically, there are three models which are used. One is called regression, one is called classification, and one more we have clustering. Okay. Now, based on these approaches, okay, we can create any AI model. So, first one is regression. Regression is a type of rule based approach. We know there are two types of approach, one is rule based and one is machine learning based. So in regression, it is actually rule based approach, means you are giving data and you are giving rules also, means you know the data, you know so many things about the data. So what you can do for prediction, you can create a graph also. In graph, you can easily predict what will happen. For example, if the graph is changing in a random manner, then you can predict that next time something will happen. If the data is changing in a constant manner, if it is a constant data, for example, if you have data like this constant, okay, constant, your graph is constant, then you know what will happen next, and you know that it is totally constant. It means it will go in the same condition after some time also. So in regression, we use the algorithm to create map from the given data. Because we know so many things about the data, then it is easily created on graph. And for this, we represent the x and y axis and then we create a graph using a solid line. Now the dots which are shown in the graph that we can see, based on these dots we have created the graph. These are data values. Sometimes data values are in constant are according to the graph, sometimes they are not according to the graph. So with the help of this mapping function, we can predict the future data, what will happen. For example, if we want to predict the salary of any employee in a company, we have to see his or her past salary for at least 5 years. Okay, that salary will be our training data, and then our rule will be that we will see the percentage increase, and based on that we will try to create the graph, and we can easily predict his or her next salary, what he will be getting. Now in this condition, the salary can be exact also that he will get, but sometimes we give only prediction. The predictions can be correct also or it can be wrong also. Predictions are totally based on the past experiences. So here in regression, you can see the data is continuous, means previous 10 years data we are getting, and next years also the data will come. So data is continuous data. Now another rule based approach is called classification. This is also rule based approach in AI model. In classification, the algorithm is able to determine which set a given data points to or belongs to. Means we can easily classify the data into two parts. Means we know that we are having two types of data. So the algorithm is able to determine which set a given data point belongs to by classifying the data into mostly two parts. Okay, and these two parts are represented by the dotted lines. Suppose we have data of so many people and we can easily bifurcate the data on the basis of their age group. We can easily bifurcate the data on the basis of the city in which they live. We can easily bifurcate the data based on their subject of interest like mathematics, English, whatever. So we know so many things about the data, and that's why we are able to work on the data easily. So this model classifies the data sets according to the rules which are given to it. Because we know the data, so we can easily create its rules. Usually the data sets used for classification are labeled because we know everything about them. And the data is then sorted or classified into two parts, broke into two parts according to the labeling. Suppose I told you that we can create two age group. So based on that we can have one separation and we will have two types of data. Testing data is then classified as one of the labels of the training data set. Means this data is then classified. For example, if we want to train a model to identify if an image of guitar or piano, the model has to identify if it is an image of guitar or a piano. So we need to first train the AI model with multiple images of guitar and piano. The model will automatically identify after some time with their labels that which is of piano, which is of guitar. Now the AI model will easily classify these photos into two parts. One will be of piano, one will be of guitar. So machine is then classifying the images on the basis of the labels which were used, and then it will predict the correct label for the testing data, means data which we will give. Okay, for example, we gave at least 50 photos of piano and 50 photos of guitar. So this is the training data that we are giving for training. It will have, or if every photo will have the label. So what computer will do? Computer will classify this data into two parts, guitar and piano. One side it will have photos of guitar, one side will have photos of piano, and it will remember all of these photos. Now it is able to easily distinguish if you will give a new photo. New photo, it will easily tell you that whether it is guitar or it is piano. That is our testing data. The machine will then classify the images on the basis of the labels and then will predict the correct label for the testing data. Means it will automatically tell you what type of data it is. So classification is not working on continuous data. The data is discrete, means data will come also, data will not come also. For example, if we have 50 photos of piano and 50 of guitar, then might be someone will give new data or someone will not give new data. So data here is discrete. Next we have clustering. Clustering is actually based on machine learning. So this is a machine learning approach where the machine create its own rule or its own algorithm, because we don't know anything about the data. So we will just put the data inside the computer and computer will itself create its own algorithm or rules to differentiate the given data set. So for example, you have given the names, so many names, 1000 names. So now based on its own learning, based on its own learning, it will classify the data into the names of a student, father name and mother name. You have given only the names of the people living in Gaya. It will automatically do this by creating its own rules or its own algorithm, and then it will automatically differentiate among the given data set, so that it can give us any result, any pre-decided goal. The data fed to such a model is usually unlabeled or random data. You are not telling the computer what type of data you are feeding. So the developer feeds in the data directly into the machine and instruct it to build its own algorithm, its own rules to work on the data. Then machine, what it will do, machine will try to find out patterns or trends in the data, some patterns and some trends in the training data, and then it will classify it into multiple parts. For example, what I gave was name of all the cities. So computer will itself create some clusters based on the states. Suppose cities those which are in Bihar, which are in Jharkhand, which are in Uttar Pradesh, which are in Odisha, it will automatically classify itself. Cluster the ones which follow the same pattern, same state. The output rules might be very different from what you are expecting because the rules are generated by the computer. So rules can be correct, rules can be wrong also. As the machine has its own way of recognizing, you have given the data, machine will automatically recognize based on its own conditions. So for example, if we have random data of stray dogs which live in our locality, among which we are unable to find any meaningful pattern about these dogs which are living. So what we will do, we will feed the data into the clustering algorithm, means this cluster algorithm. Okay, or we will feed only the data of all the dogs. Okay, the algorithm would then analyze the data and divide it into clusters. So the algorithm is itself doing all of these things. So it will divide the data into clusters according to the similarities based on the trends which are noticed by the computer. So computer will itself notice the trends. The clusters are then given as the output by the computer. So data is unknown, unlabeled, but computer is trying to label it or classify it on its own. It is only having data, so it is going to create its own rules and its own algorithm. So in this you can also see that clustering also works on discrete data set. These are not continuous. Okay, if the data will be continuous, automatically it will be rule based because you know so many things about the data. You know the classification of data. On the basis of these facts, now we will move to the concept of neural network, that is very important, and we will try to know which is the core concept behind machine learning. And this core concept behind machine learning is actually neural network. Neural network works on machine learning. Neural network are very important when we have very huge data. And normally we have different systems that can work on very small number of data, but when we have very huge data, we have to work on artificial neural network. So these neural network are one of the methods which are used for modeling of the data and analysis of the data. So if you want to analyze any data which we have got, then you can work on it using machine learning approach, that is artificial neural network. Now the first neural network was thought of by Warren McCullough and Walter Pitts in the year 1943. They thought about it in the year 1943, then they wrote a thesis on this topic, and this topic was made available for the common people in the year 1944. The human brain is one of the greatest mysteries of our time. And that's why we are trying to work on the brain, especially of those people who have achieved so many things in their life. For example, Albert Einstein's mind, his brain, is actually preserved in a laboratory in any museum. So human brain, how it is able to compute, how it is able to do all of these work, it is very complex and very big mystery for the scientists to work upon. And scientists still have not reached a consensus on exactly how the human brain works. Because in neural network we are trying to mimic the human brain so that computers can also think like human being. There are some scientific theories that states that humans use hardly 10% of the actual potential of their brain. Only 10% we are using the capacity of our brain. Is it under our control to use our brain? Somehow we can by using some method. But not always we are able to control our brain. However, we can develop and train our brain to go beyond its capabilities. For example, when a child is born, he or she knows how to cry. Then we will teach him some new things. So this right now you are in class 9, so you are also learning something. So as year passes, we learn so many things. So he will also learn so many things in his life. So gradually with time and with practice, he or she starts learning different things. That is on what our artificial neural network is based on data for training. Many neuroscientists believe that this learning which we are giving it to the person, to the brain of the person, is it stimulates new dendrite connections among neurons. Neurons are the message transmitter in our body. So new dendrite connections are created when you learn something new. So computer is having its own hard disk where it is saving all of your data. The more you use your brain through learning, stimulation and different methods, the greater the dendrite will be and the more learning capacity you will have. Thus, as we learn more and more, we become more intelligent because more and more dendrites are created in the brain. So we will become intelligent. Therefore, wisdom and knowledge, these two things are not genetic, are not based on genetics, but these are based on how we learn and how we practice and what we learn. So by learning, we can make ourselves smart, we can learn more and more, and we can increase our wisdom and knowledge. So likewise, by learning one by one, by learning through data, by learning through any other person, we are able to learn and give answers. Likewise, we can create artificial neural network also, and this will also give us result. A neural network, which is often called artificial neural network, is totally inspired by the way our biological nervous system or neural system works in the human brain. The way human brain processes information is the same way used by this artificial neural network. Let's try to define artificial neural network. So we can say we are trying to replicate the human brain. We are trying to copy the human brain. In human brain, whenever you learn something new, so new dendrites are created and these dendrites help you remember the things better. So multiple times if you will remember the same thing, dendrites will increase and your wisdom, your knowledge, your sense, your thinking will increase. Likewise, we have the neural network also. A neural network, or in the modern sense we say it as artificial neural network, is a network or circuit, connection or collection of neurons. And these neurons are actually artificial neurons, and these artificial neurons are called nodes. So instead of real neurons, we have now artificial neurons created by the human being. So we can say a neural network is either biological neural network, which is in our human brain made up of real biological neurons, or it can be artificial neural network for solving AI problems. Now neural network is a branch of machine learning. Neural network is a branch of machine learning and that is called deep learning. Deep learning is one of the many machine learning algorithms that enables a computer to perform so many tasks. So there are so many machine learning algorithm. In these machine learning algorithm, we have one more algorithm, that is deep learning. So deep learning is also one algorithm, one ML algorithm that enables a computer to perform so many tasks. For example, it can predict, it can give predictions of a certain kind on rule based. For example, stock prediction in the share market, salary prediction, I just gave you the example, or whether the person is eligible for job or not, predictions can be done by the AI system. These AI systems will be based on the neural network. One more thing that it can do, classification of images of different animals. It can bifurcate and classify, or whether an employee is good or bad for the company, that also you can do. Deep learning uses the concept of neural network to do its job. Now let's see some applications of neural network. Neural network are changing how people and organizations are interacting with systems and solving their problems. Previously we were using a rule based approach. In rule based approach you have to give data also, you have to give rules also, and based on those rules it will give the result. In that case there are many chances of wrong data and wrong rules we have given, then we will get wrong result also. So now, because of neural network, we are able to solve problems and are also helping the human beings in getting better decision and predictions. Neural network can be used for character recognition or image recognition. So in Word, suppose you are taking a photo of the book, then the book's photo can get converted into text, that is based on character recognition. We can compress the image and make it small also by using image compression. We can have stock market prediction also by using AI model. We can create voice recognition system like Siri or Alexa based on this. We can create self-driving cars also, and many more things we can do. Those things which require very huge amount of data, we usually give it to neural network so that it will classify these things itself. A few features of the neural network are: neural network systems are modeled on the human brain. We just talked about it. It is same copy of human brain and our nervous system. They have named it artificial nervous system or artificial neural network because it is artificial. It is totally modeled, or they have totally worked on the human brain and trying to mimic it with the machines. They are able to automatically extract features. They are able to automatically classify the data without any input from the programmer. Programmer will only give the data. Computer will itself create its own algorithm for working on the data. So without input from the programmer, without any help from the programmer or coder, the computer can do so many tasks itself, creating its own rules and regulations. Every neural network is essentially a machine learning algorithm because neural network is totally based on ML algorithm. Neural networks are very important, are very useful in solving problems for which you have a very huge amount of data. When data sets are quite large, when we have thousands and thousands of TB of data, means lakhs of GB of data. In that condition, when data set is very large, then you can go for neural network. Relationship between the neural network and the human nervous system. We would have studied this in science, how neurons in a human body work. Let's just recall it. Okay. Now you can see this is axon. Okay. This is nucleus. These are dendrites which are getting created when you learn something new. This is the cell body, and these are the branches of the axon. And these are the terminals of the axon from which axon will get attached to any other neuron. So the axon from the neuron sends an impulse to the synapse of another neuron, means the neuron which is connected. So neurons axon sends impulse or electric signal to the another neuron. The impulse then is received by from that neuron for which the uh, impulse was sent. The impulse received is then sent to the cell body, that is nucleus. Okay, so what is happening? Axon is sending an impulse, or you can say electric signal, from here to the neuron's nucleus. Okay. Likewise, the impulse received is then sent to the cell body nucleus through dendrites. So axon is sending the information through dendrites, and then this some information which is coming is now given to nucleus. The cell body performs an activation function. This is the whole cell body. This gives the activation function on the impulse which is received, and then gives it to the output axon. Means the axon which is going to transmit the data, which passes it to the next neuron in the system. Now, as we relate this process with an artificial neural network, we can see that the input layer gets data which it passes on to the nodes in the hidden layer. Okay, actually we have three layers: input layer, hidden layer, and the output layer. This is the input layer. This hidden layer is hidden from these two, input and output, but they work. And at last when we get the result, that is the output layer. So what we are seeing is that the nodes perform some specific action on the data and pass the processed information to the next layer, so that the data is transmitted easily and new dendrites are created. In the end, final processed data then reaches the output of the system. So we get the result. Artificial neural networks architecture. What is the base of artificial neural network? Okay, how they are created? A typical neural network will contain a large number of artificial neurons, and these neurons are called units. These artificial neurons are called units, and these are arranged in a series of layers. We have three layers: input layer, output layer, and hidden layer. Input layer, it contains those units, means those artificial neurons which receive input from the outside world, which the network is to use to learn, recognize, or identify the process. So input layer contains those units, those neurons which are received as input from the outside world. Okay, so these neurons get input from the outside world, and then these inputs are used as data. Then the network will learn, recognize, and otherwise process. Then we have the output layer. It contains units, means artificial neurons, that respond to the information and how the network has learned any task. This output layer will actually give you the information or answer on how we have to do. So it will respond to the information about how the network has learned any task. The hidden layer, in between input and output, you can see input and output, we have the layer in between called hidden layer. In hidden layer, these units are between the input and the output layer. I just told you. The job of the hidden layer is to transform the input that is given by the programmer into something that the output unit can use in some way. So actually a process is going on. We provide some input, then we have one layer to work upon it called hidden layer, and after that is clear, then the third layer, output layer, is having the condition that it can put the answers of the input in hidden layer, or it can leave also. So human brain contains many neurons and many synapses than a neural system, because it is theoretical. It is, we are creating it, but it is still in the nascent age. So we cannot create as many more neurons as the human brain is having. One more thing, the human brain is self-organizing, self-adaptive, self-motivated. It do not need any outside force. A neural network, by comparison, is organized according to any architecture based on any model we create it. One of the most attractive feature of this neural network is that it can learn on its own. It is having the capacity to learn. You can see most neural networks are fully connected, which means that each hidden neuron is fully linked to every neuron. You can see every is fully linked to another neuron in its previous layer. So previous layer, suppose for hidden layer we have the input layer as the previous one, so you will work on it. We have one game that is AI hands-on. Okay, using that game we will understand and experience when neural network is like through. It is a very interesting game. There is a human neural network. We have to create a human neural network out of the students which are in the class. Now let's talk about the advantages and disadvantages or limitations of neural network. What are the benefits or advantages of neural network? A neural network can perform tasks that a conventional computer cannot do. A basic computer cannot do work of segregation of data. It cannot cluster the data into two parts or more than two parts. So this work will be done by neural network, but because it is very much smart. It is a very smarter machine. It learns and does not need to be reprogrammed because it is creating its own rules and machine learning algorithm based on the data given. So we do not need to tell the computer what to do. It do not need to be programmed. You can implement it in any application because it is platform independent, so you can run it anywhere wherever you want. It is fault tolerant, means if you will create any fault, if you will do something wrong, then no problem, next time it will correct itself. No problem. If you are not knowing that you have made a mistake, it will automatically correct itself in some days. It is having fault tolerance. It has numerical strength that enables it to perform more than one job at the same time. It can do more than one job at the same time because it is very much strong. So it has that much strength of working in a very harsh environment also, where we have so much work to do. If you are working on more than one job, then you can ask neural network. So that was one problem of artificial intelligence, that it is not able to make the machines do more than one task. So if you make the machines work on neural network, then you will be able to achieve this task also. Now what are the limitations or what are the disadvantages of this neural network? First thing is training. For training you have to give data. Then only it will create its own rules and regulations or machine learning algorithm. So a neural network needs training to operate, so you have to give very huge amount of data, then only it will work. The architecture of any neural network is so much different from microprocessors which are in different hardware devices. So you have to emulate or copy the human neural network. So you need to know how it will work. A large neural network will require a high processing time because it will be working on very huge amount of data. So this much we are having in this chapter.